appreciate today and to work on practicing more. And that is the art of observation. The art of observation. We might not realize that we're artists of observation, but we are in every moment. And I want to start by having us observe something. Okay? Everyone see this picture? Sort of. I'm going to hold it up a little bit so both sides of the room can see it. So, how many of you observe a young lady? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you observe an old woman? Okay. How many of you observe both? Yeah. You see it? The old woman's mouth here, nose, the young lady with her chin here. Yeah. So I offer this as to get us thinking about how we observe, because every day through life we are observing our life, ourselves, each other, events, experiences in our lives, and we may be looking at the same thing, but we're seeing things differently. We're not all seeing the same thing. In fact, I would hedge a bet that we're all seeing things very differently through our lens, through our perception, if you will. And, some would say that there is no reality, that everything is perception. And I would have us explore today how we look at reality in unity. And what that means. So reality in unity, Charles Fillmore, our co-founder in Unity, says in his book Prosperity, divine mind is the one and only reality. That divine mind of spirit is the one and only reality. And I love how Donald Curtis, he's an earlier Unity author, and he was minister at Unity of Dallas for many years. Here's how he talks about reality. He said, reality is the underlying nature of God in all life. The underlying nature of God in all life. While appearance is what we have done with reality in consciousness. Appearance is what we've done with reality in consciousness. Love how he frames that. And it reminds me of an exercise that we did in ministerial school. We had a small group exercise where we were to come up with a visual for how spirit, soul, and body relate to each other. And my small group came up with the image of a lighthouse, which I love and has kind of stuck with me, where the light of the lighthouse is spirit, the spirit within shining out into the world. And the glass of the lighthouse is our soul. Our soul in Unity we define as our consciousness. So we're looking, that spiritual light is looking out through the lens, the window of our consciousness, if you will. And sometimes that window gets a little foggy, doesn't it? Or dirty, or needs a little cleaning up, if you will. Not so clear. And then the structure of the lighthouse is our physical body that carries that soul and spirit around in the world. And it made me just start to think about, as we observe, we're all observing through that lens of our consciousness, if you will, that spiritual lens. There's the story of two travelers. They've been walking down a dusty, long road, and they're both very weary. And the first one reaches the outskirts of this village first, and he runs across a wise woman. And he says, "Old woman, tell me, what are the people of this village like?" And she's because I've come from a village previously that is unkind and not very trustworthy and greedy. And she says, you will find, she smiled and was very warm, but she said, you will find the people of this village much the same. And then the next traveler came along a little while later, and he runs into the same wise woman, and he asked the wise woman, he said, excuse me, please, could you please tell me what the people of this village are like? I've come from this wonderful place where people are kind and generous and trusting. And she said, you will find the people of this village much the same. And he was excited and continued on to the village, anxious to meet people. And there was a young boy who had witnessed both of these conversations, and he runs up to the old woman and he said, "Grandmother, please tell me, why did you tell these two gentlemen the same answer when they've come from such very different places?" And she said to him, "Because no matter where they go, they will each see the world through the eyes they bring with them." No matter where they go, they will each see the world through the eyes they bring with them. I love what those two travelers demonstrate for us, because we come to the world, to our experience of our world, through our own perceptions, right? And often we have our imperfect perceptions that cause us those feelings of guilt and shame and anger and rage and all the different emotions, us versus them, that keep us separate from experiencing and expressing the divine within. And there's two parts. Those travelers show us two parts of our observation process. The first is to notice, right? Notice whatever's in front of us. And the second is to arrive at a conclusion about it. So I bet all of us, since we've entered the doors of this room, have made about 20 conclusions, and we don't even know it. It's something that just happens constantly in the back of our mind. Some of those work for us, and some of those kind of block our divine expression, if you will. And all of it shapes our lives. How we see life shapes our life. I was traveling to Tucson last week with my son. He's 15 and a half and now learning to drive. and we were going to Tucson to help my mom pack up and purge her house and downsize. And we were driving through Albuquerque, and we were at a stop sign, and I'm driving, and we get rear-ended. Oh. And just sitting there at a stop sign, right? All of a sudden, boom. And having been rear-ended like 11 years ago in a very serious accident that damaged my spine and all that, I could have seen that experience, or both of us could have, because Joshua and I were both in the car then. We could have seen that through the lens of trauma, right? And let it ruin our whole trip, and had it be a huge deal. But something in me was just so calm and centered. Like all of a sudden I shifted to the perspective of, wow, what a great teaching moment for Joshua on what to do when you experience a car accident. I got out and snapped pictures of the cars and the guy, and talked to the witness, and called the New Mexico line to see what I needed to do if I wanted to report it and all that stuff. But just kind of like, boo, 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 I'm going through the motions of what to do in this situation, right? But it could have been so different had I not shifted to that conclusion and come from it from a trauma conclusion, or some other like, oh, what a pain, or just letting it run us. And so the challenge for us is to observe all of those experiences in our lives consciously, from as much as we can from those eyes of spirit, right? And to become masterful artists in the artistry of observation, if you will. And we know from lots of studies that now that the observer actually affects the observed. So there was a neuropsychologist at Stanford University named Carl Pribram, and he studied the holographic brain, if you will. And what he discovered is that an image in mind actually fires the same neural connections as the act of doing it. And so thinking and doing kind of, they, insofar as the autonomic nervous system goes, they're the same in us, if you will. So in other words, the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between real and imagined experiences. And so an experiment that went on with a physical education class in Chicago, they separated the class into 3 different groups. Group A did 100 free throws a day, and Group B went on practicing as they normally do. You know, their basketball practice, they just kept with the same program. Group C spent 15 minutes a day visualizing the perfect free throw. And the results of that experiment were that Group A and Group C were essentially the same. They got the same results, both visualizing and practicing it. And Group B kind of failed miserably. You know, sometimes when we do the same thing the same old way, you know, we don't quite get the results that we want sometimes. So how we observe things shapes things. There was a famous golfer, you've probably maybe heard of Jack Nicklaus. And one of the old greats in the field of golf. And he says this about the art of observation, not necessarily in this context, but he talks about observing his shots. He said, "I never hit a shot, even in practice, without having a very sharp, in-focus picture in my head. It's like a color movie. First, I see the ball where I wanted to finish, nice and white and sitting up high on the green grass. Then the scene quickly changes, and I see the ball going there. Its path, its trajectory, its shape, even its behavior on landing. Then there's a sort of fade out, and the next scene shows me making the kind of swing that will turn the previous images into reality. Only at the end of this short, private Hollywood spectacular do I select a club and step up to the ball." I love that. I love that because he's showing us the art of observation, of the power of creating that image in our minds and really allowing that to unfold in our mind's eye. He's modeling the art of observation. And I love the metaphor he uses of the Hollywood movie, you know, private short Hollywood movie. I played with that this week, just journaling about, okay, what's the movie I'm watching in my life right now? You know, and what do I want it to be? And what title would I give this movie? You know, am I watching a drama or a horror or a comedy or an action adventure? You know, I mean, think about that for yourself and have some fun playing with that this week of what is it? What's the movie of my life right now, and what do I want it to be? And the thing is, you know, sometimes if we don't like the movie we're watching in our lives, we just want to change the theater or the screen or the popcorn. Well, you know, all the things in the outer. We just want to change it out here. But really what shifts our experience of life is changing how we frame the movie. You know, going back and doing the edits, the inner edits of how is it that I'm seeing this experience, and editing from there, really making the changes from there. So how do we become masterful artists of observation? I want us to practice 3 different ways of looking this week as our spiritual practice. So the first way of looking to practice is to look for the underlying conclusions. Like, notice, what am I making this situation mean? How am I observing this situation? Because we have those conclusions and those beliefs, and we gather our evidence for them, and that shapes how we show up, and that shapes how others show up around us. It's this whole way that we're creating our experience. So noticing, looking for the underlying conclusions. So here's an example. I have a friend who I was helping sort of work through a conclusion that she had about a family member. And she was really struggling in this relationship that was near and dear to her. And she's always so combative. And she was so frustrated because she felt like she was always being met with that combative energy. And guess what? She was showing up defensive, guarded, protected, not vulnerable, right? Because she had that person framed as combative. And so as we shined a light of truth on what's really, you know, how is that affecting her relationship there? She saw that she needed to let that underlying conclusion go and move to one that worked more for her, that was more effective for the relationship, and she shifted to, we are both learning and growing from this relationship. And when you come from a place of learning and growing, it yields a whole different result than you're so combative, right? I mean, feel the difference of, and the shift started to begin for her when she could come from that different conclusion, if you will. And so after we catch ourselves in that underlying conclusion, we also have to look deeper for the divine in that moment, to spend that time in prayer and meditation to really find our spiritual eyesight, if you will. To spend time in the prayer and meditation to clean the glass so that our light of spirit can shine brilliantly through it. I can remember in my 20s, I did a Native American vision quest that was sort of a unity Native American vision quest. And I sat on the edge of this river for several days in just observing this, 10-foot radius of where I was sitting. And it was amazing how every hour, some new insight, I saw something new. I saw something differently. A new insight of spirit came. And I think often we are so quick to see the challenges at work or in our families or in relationships or whatever, but we have to slow it down to see spirit, to see the good, to see the gift, and take time to find the gift in each situation. And as we do, as we slow it down to see the gift, we actually increase our speed at kind of getting into that God consciousness quicker when we've moved away from it. When we kind of slow it down to speed it up, if you will. And then lastly, we look for the more effective conclusion. We look for our spiritual eyesight. How is it that we want to see our lives and envision our lives? How is it that we want to see the situations in our world and in our societies? How is it that we want to see ourselves? Sometimes we're quick to judge ourselves, and we have some underlying conclusions that aren't allowing our divinity to shine forth because of how we see ourselves. One of the most beautiful ways I've seen to find a more workable conclusion was in the movie Life is Beautiful, the Italian film. How many of you have seen that? A few of you. Okay. It's an older film. It's an Italian film about the Italian Jewish population in the Nazi concentration camps. It's a hard film to watch, but also a beautiful, meaningful film. And in that, Guido is the father. He's the main character in the film. And Guido and his young son Joshua have just been taken to the concentration camp with a whole bunch of other Italian Jewish men, and the women have been separated out. So they're in their barracks for the first few moments, and a German guard comes in. And he is about to explain the rules of the concentration camp on what they need to do to not get executed. It's a very intense, scary moment, right? And Guido has his young son here and thinking about how do I create this experience for my son? And the guard asks for a volunteer to interpret the rules of the camp from German into Italian. And Guido's friend explains what the guard just asked, and he raises his hand to volunteer, and his friend goes, "Do you speak German?" "No." He goes up and starts translating for him. And as the guard is yelling his commands, the rules of the camp, he's saying, "The game starts now." This is his interpretation. "The game starts now. The first to 1,000 points wins. The prize is a tank." Wow, lucky the person to get the tank. And every day they will announce from the loudspeaker who's ahead. And if you have the lowest amount of points, you will wear a humiliating sign on your back. And if you complain, you will lose points. And then he goes on to say there are three cases where you lose all points. 1, if you start crying. 2, if you want to see your mommy. 3, if you're hungry and want a snack, forget about it. And don't even think about asking for lollipops. He went on and on. What a powerful moment of spontaneously reframing that for his son, right? The other men got the other information from the others that spoke German, but reframing that moment for his son, for his survival, and to see that experience differently so that he could get through it and thrive as much as he possibly could and survive. And the young boy did. So no matter what situation we're in, we have the opportunity to be masterful artists of our lives through our art of observation. So I invite us all to go out and look differently in those 3 ways, observe differently in those 3 ways this week, and become artists of the lives we want to create and create masterpieces. And so it is. And I want to invite us into a time of meditation now. And I brought my crystal singing bowl to guide us in. So just invite you to take a nice deep breath in and to settle into your chairs, closing your eyes and quieting the mind as we move into meditation. And again, taking another deep breath in. Breathing into that inner sanctuary and breathing out, softening, opening to Spirit's light and illumination, illuminating our consciousness, helping us to find our spiritual eyes. And going deeper into that inner sanctuary to allow ourselves to go to those misperceptions, those imperfect perceptions that we've held on to, and gently prepare to release those. So we are prepared to enter into a time of silence, to go within to hear that guidance of Spirit, to go to that healing presence and power of the divine, that healing love and light that helps us release that which is needed to be released and to shine our light brilliantly. And so we rest in the silence, open, receptive, and listening. Sweet Spirit, as we prepare to bring our awareness back into this room, we give thanks for all the ways that we are guided to release those imperfect perceptions. We give thanks for all the ways our hearts and minds are illuminated. And we give thanks for the love that is available to us now and always. And so it is. Amen.